Hey, y'all. Welcome to Bama Blue Dog. I'm Pat.
And I'm Michelle. We want to thank you so much for joining us again this week.
So, this week's episode is going to be a heavy one, but also a really important one.
I agree. We're going to talk about a few things that everyone may have seen in the headlines over this past week. There has been a lot of chaos and downright insanity that even has my head spinning. And because we know that's a lot, at the end of the episode, we're going to slow things down a bit, take a breather, and talk about something lighter as we head into the holidays. So whether you're listening while driving, cleaning the house, or just trying to make sense of the world, we're really glad you're here. Let's start this off with something a little juicy. Did you see the 2-part Vanity Fair piece that was just released?
Caroline Levitt's photo is the stuff of nightmares. I grew up and went to college before social media was super prevalent. There are times I wonder, like, oh, I hope there's no unflattering photos of me on there. That is the worst photo I've ever seen in my life. The lip injections, you could see the spots.
That was a very strategic close-up shot of her face.
I find myself, since I saw that photo, over moisturizing because I'm so worried that I'm going to look crepey like her.
Yeah, I'm still lost for words over that photo.
That was the most unflattering. Like, the article itself is bad, but the photos, holy shit. What camera lens did they use? Because, like, JD Vance, like, the sun damage on his skin. Holy shit. Those are the most unflattering photographs I have ever seen of another human being. That is the stuff of nightmares.
Whoever the editor was for that article, they knew exactly what they were doing. It really gives you this mask off vibe. And really, honestly, it is a beautiful representation of the fake facade we are seeing with this administration. When you first looked at that article, you get this like main photo where they're all perfectly positioned, not a hair out of place. Every filter is working overtime. It is the image that they would like to believe everyone sees. However, sprinkled throughout that article are these candid close ups that show you reality and what sane people really see when they see this administration.
They did a fantastic job of that. Even how they placed it where JD Vance is on both sides. So you've got kind of the like super MAGA, and then you've got like the two different sides of the administration, and JD Vance is on both of them. Like, they did a phenomenal job of really telling a story just through the photos. But I would cry if those photos were released of me. And I know it's totally superficial, but at the end of the day, like, they did a very good job of storytelling. And I don't know how the administration is going to defend this.
The article was really, really well done. And it's good to see someone out there have a backbone and not only peel back the fakeness of it all, but also not sanewash anything this administration is saying.
Susie Wiles is obviously saying, I was taken out of context. How do you say that somebody has an alcoholic's personality? In what context could you make that not awful? Or, saying that JD Vance is a conspiracy theorist and opportunist. There's no context in which that could be okay. And Vanity Fair stepped up and said, okay, you want to sue us and you want to say that we were taken out of context? Bet here's the entire recordings. Like, they had 11 interviews with her, and she says she didn't know she was on the record. If you're in an interview, if you're talking to a reporter, you're on the record.
Well, not only that, but if you listen to the Pod Save America guys at all, they recently had an episode going over this very topic. One of the guys, John Favreau, talked about how he had done an interview with the same reporter, Chris Whipple, like back in like 2013, 2014, when Chris was writing his book called The Gatekeepers. And during that interview, he was really straightforward with John and super professional. So, in other words, there is no mistake on what is on the record or what is off the record with Chris Whipple, is essentially what John had to say about that.
I mean, they did multiple interviews with her, and, like, yeah, they were posed photos, but, clearly they cooperated. I'm just wondering, I was like, the first time I read it, whenever I saw the stuff Susie Wiles was saying, I was like, "This seems like girls dishing over margaritas."
Or someone who is no longer in the administration doing an interview for a book that they do not expect to come out for a few years.
And, like, she was dropping tea, and I was like, "Oh, she got mad, and she was she was just airing the dirty laundry, and now she's trying to save herself." And, it is kinda surprising that she hasn't been fired yet because of it, but at the same time, she's too dangerous to fire.
Well, Trump's already come out defending her. However, I have no doubt in my mind that this has more to do with it being in print and not a recorded live interview.
Mhm. Well, we all know that Trump doesn't get the actual news. Trump has no idea what's going on. So, in his mind, there's probably just an unflattering photograph of Caroline Levitt, and that's it to him. But she can't be fired. She's too dangerous to fire because she is like the chief of staff. Yeah, I say like the president is the head, the chief of staff is the neck. She's involved in everything that's going on. So, I mean, if she's already, I mean, she's loose lipped. We've already seen it. He's not, he's kind of stuck.
I don't know. I just think she's very lucky that Trump is illiterate and whoever follows him around with that portable printer and extra large Sharpies to keep him entertained with Trump fluff pieces from Fox Entertainment is keeping him so distracted and happy right now. That interview was a complete train wreck. And she also said a lot of damning things that are undermining this administration's narrative. Like, she denied that Trump is actually going to run for office again, that it was a distraction. And he's kept up that farce because it keeps people distracted and angry.
Well, even the stuff she said about the Epstein files, dude, I've loved, for months, Republicans have said, well, hey, leftists, liberals, that Bill Clinton's in the files. Oh, let me get rid of, oh, damn, I'm going to have to throw out my Bill Clinton t shirt, my Bill Clinton sign, my Bill Clinton clock, my Bill Clinton beer. Like, we don't give a shit if Bill Clinton's on that list. Honestly, I'd be more shocked if he wasn't on the list than if he was. We don't idolize our politicians. But now she's saying that Bill Clinton might be completely like absolved of any wrongdoing, but Trump is like they're basically the Trump files at this point. I mean, which we've all kind of known, but I am going to laugh my ass off if Bill Clinton's like completely implicated of any wrongdoing just because they have been coming at us for so long. Like, Bill Clinton's in the files, Bill Clinton's in the files. Like, yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't idolize our politicians. They are elected officials that are there to work for us. They're not kings, they're not gods. They are people like me and you, which means they are not above reproach or infallible. But what made me cackle was her statements about Pam Bondi and how she mishandled the Epstein files. So not only did she pretty much absolve Bill Clinton in connection with the Epstein files, but then she just tossed Pam Bondi right under the bus. It was glorious, like absolutely perfect.
Did you see in the article how they how she like how it was broken up where like everybody was a different character? I almost pissed myself when I saw the caddy. Dan Scavina. I just wasn't expecting that. And I was like, you will never be anything but a caddy. Like that was so funny to me. I am disappointed they didn't do like the mouth of Sauron for Caroline Levitt just because Chef's Kiss, that would have been perfect. But when I saw the caddy, I was in public and I almost pissed myself because I was laughing so hard. Like, there was so much pettiness in this article. This is like some 50 Cent level. Like, I don't know if they watched that Diddy documentary and took inspo from that, but, like, we've gotta step up our hating game for real. Like, I genuinely think they saw that Diddy documentary and were like, "Alright, let's go. Bet." Because that was there was so much beautiful pettiness to it.
Oh God. It makes you wonder if they hired 50 Cent to be the editorial director for this.
50 Cent suddenly co-owns Vanity Fair. God, that but yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And like you said, the big thing is it made it very, very clear and confirmed what we've been saying for so long that so much of this is distractions. We all know that Trump is not, there's no way he's going to run for a third term. I mean, he's not going to live that long. Let's be real. He's that old and he's lived off nothing but Big Macs and Diet Coke his entire life. We know that's not something, but we at least have confirmation from someone inside that says, yes, this is him trolling and trying to distract.
And I think it's important to remember that this is the game that this administration is playing. We can't control them, we can't control what they do, but we can control the way we react to it. So, me personally, I'm laughing. And I will continue to treat them like the circus and clown show that they are.
And we'll get to this later when we talk about reactions to some other things. But even Margie is confirming a lot of this stuff because, she's singing like a canary now all of a sudden. But, there's a lot of things that, like I said, we've got to keep our eye on what's important. And while this is kind of a Christmas gift to us, this article, I mean, it really feels like a Christmas present. But, we've got to keep our eye on what's important. So the question is this interview, is there a chance they could have let this out as a distraction? Or like why did this article come out now? And that's kind of where I'm at. Like,
I have no doubts that this was pitched to them as this glamorous two-part editorial. And with any normal administration, it would have just been that some milk toast. Here's the president and their cabinet, bland piece. However, since Trump has decided the best course of action is to surround himself with a room full of people who mistake confidence for competence, they couldn't help but prove everyone right by acting like they had absolutely no common sense. And as unhinged as that Vanity Fair interview was, it's almost noise at this point. Which takes us to our next discussion, Turning Point USA, and the town hall that wasn't a town hall. We will discuss this more after a short break.
thank you so much for listening to our podcast. To help us connect other Blue Dots in Alabama and get bonus content, make sure to follow us on YouTube at Bama Blue Dots.
Welcome back. So, we need to discuss that disastrous town hall that was aired on CBS and hosted by Barry Weiss. What I watched was completely Looney Tunes. There's definitely something going on with Erika Kirk.
I don't know about you, but kind of getting some crazy vibes from her. You know what I mean? When she said, stop. I don't know. She was, and I know everybody grieves differently. I am never going to judge somebody else's grief because everyone does things differently. Some people turn to others, some people like to grieve privately, but there's something going on. Like, I don't know. There's just something off about all of it. And, we've talked about Candace Owens before on this podcast. I've never been a Candace Owens fan, but she seems to be the only one who gave a shit and has given a shit about the investigation. And she said when it first started, whenever Candace Owens first started covering this, she said, there are only two people that can stop me. Myself and Erika Kirk. And if Erika Kirk tells me to stop, I will. Well, she didn't stop. Again, I hate judging somebody that is going through the grieving process of a loved one because everybody grieves differently. But I ain't never seen anybody grieve like this.
Yeah, as much as I sympathize with her, I do not feel like this was a town hall. It felt performative and staged, so she would have the opportunities for viral clips to be made. A town hall implies open back and forth conversations, and that was not this at all. She didn't answer a single question. I was watching another content creator the other day who had on one of the people who had the opportunity to attend and ask Erica a question.
Was he the one who was the last person to technically talk to Charlie Kirk? Like he was at, like he is the one who asked the gun violence question?
Yes, Hunter Kozak. And his question was pretty simple. He asked her that, in the spirit of stopping political violence, would she hold both parties to the same standard and expectations and condemn the violent rhetoric of Donald Trump? Boy, was she like Neo in the Matrix, dodging that question and holding Trump accountable. Instead, this is what she did instead. She rambled for a good while and then at the end landed on parents need to step up and not raise political assassins.
Yeah, and I give all props to someone who is able to grieve openly and publicly because I feel like that gives a lot of people who aren't able to do that some sort of hope or someone that they can look to is like I said, it's very private the way people do things. But if someone is able to grieve publicly, I think that's a good thing because it allows other people to see that process and relate to it and see that there are other people out there. But this ain't the way to do it. She feels like she's on revenge tour. She is I it's very Serena Joy. It is very much giving Serena Joy during Handmaid's Tale right after the funeral. That is her right now. She is out for revenge, and she is trying to take up the mission that her husband left.
Yeah, but part of me wonders if she's been pushed into doing all of this and why her behavior is just extreme and why she's acting so erratic. Like part of her hasn't been allowed to grieve.
I guarantee you, if she were to say, "I'm stepping away from Turning Point USA for 6 months to focus on my kids," somebody else would take the reins up. There's plenty of men in that organization who are more than happy to take on, being the head of it. This is a person who, I mean, she has the ability to step away from it or even just to say, I'm going to be the face of it. She did a couple of interviews right in the wake of his death to say, we've got to calm down the rhetoric. We've got to do this and then take time away. But the fact that she is out there, public, I mean, she's basically on tour at this point. I hate that I am agreeing with Candace Owens so much. Hate it. But I'm kind of team Candace on this. Nothing is adding up with it. And Candace Owens has even said after that meeting they had yesterday that was so crazy and secretive, and I us were hoping Candace came out alive. But even then, she's like, I went into this wanting to be able to walk out and say, I am convinced that Tyler Robinson is the one who killed Charlie Kirk. She said, I can't say that. I can't say that still. Like I can't because all they have is the affidavit. They don't have any other proof apparently. And like there's just a lot of stuff that's not adding up.
Well, I can definitely say this in the immortal words of AOC. The girls are fighting and it's crazy. But before we go any further, let's take another short break and we will return right after this.
Want to listen to Bama Blue Dots on the go? Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and tune in every Thursday for new episodes. Welcome back, and thanks for staying tuned in. We know this next part is going to be pretty heavy, so I want to make sure to put out a trigger warning. That is something that is going to be difficult for you. Suggesting you in next week. You want to stick with us? We're going to discuss kind of what happened and how we respond to these tragedies. Obviously, there was a horrible tragedy in Australia at Bondi Beach, multiple casualties. I know that there are still investigations going on. The country is working on, improving gun laws, and our hearts go out to those who are impacted. We also need to talk about what happened at Brown University in Rhode Island. This is just, I hate to say this, but it's another school shooting. Just another one in America. We've had so many of them, and immediately this set off panic, confusion, and as always, just a yearn for information from people. And unfortunately, the FBI arrested the wrong guy at the beginning. Hey, we've got him. We've got the guy. We've got it. And no, it wasn't him. There are so many implications for this, and there are so many consequences when this happens. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the news. Like, what are your thoughts on everything here?
Honestly, it is this type of haphazard handling that can cause irreparable damage, and it puts real people and their families at risk. It's understandable that when something like this happens, people want every detail. But really, we should be focused on the victims and how we can comfort them, not create additional fallout. I think just in the past couple days, I've seen at least 2 or 3 different pictures circulated now of men, all with different types of bodies, claiming this is the one. This grainy photo is the suspect. And the worst part is that the suspect at this time is still at large. My hope is by the time we're done editing all this and we post it up, they have actually found, located, and captured the proper suspect.
I, as a millennial, I look back and everybody says everything changed at 9/11. No, everything changed at Columbine. I was in fifth grade. School was no longer safe at that point. And the kids today have it even worse. Like, I at least experienced kindergarten through fourth grade of sort of this peaceful, just sense of safety that you had at school. And kids, they don't have that. I mean, the fact that they're making backpacks that are basically bulletproof. I'm thankful they're making them, but it's disgusting that they have to.
When Columbine happened, I was a senior in high school. It was so close to graduation that outside of seeing it on the news, there was not a lot of impact on my school experience. The most dramatic thing that happened in my K through 12 years was the fire drills and the tornado drills. Everything was just so different back then. Parents could walk freely around the school. The doors were not locked, and there were not on duty officers walking around the halls. It's just so different now.
That really is the day our childhood ended and the innocence of childhood ended. Because the thing I think that was scariest is we had always grown up with the stranger danger. We were always raised like, don't follow strangers. If somebody comes up and says your name, ask them for the password thing. And then we had Dare, which had me thinking that people were going to offer me drugs all the time. And then as an adult, I learned that drugs are expensive and that doesn't happen. But those were the biggest threats we saw from other people. But I think the most horrifying piece of this is that it was your peers. It was other kids. And I remember right after Columbine, it was all blamed on the video games. That was the big thing. It had to be the shooting video game and Marilyn Manson and the music. Those were the things that were causing this. And then it turned into its movie. It's always been everything but the damn guns. So after Abby Werner, the teacher who was shot, she had her court case. School is liable for it. She's going to go after the parents. And I think that that's going to set a huge precedent. That sort of precedent where parents are going to have to give a shit when it comes to their guns. Because if we're not going to implement gun laws, At least make it to where people have to be responsible for what happens with those guns. I own a car. I have to carry insurance on it. I have to get my license renewed. I have to get the registration renewed. In most states, you have to get inspections done to make sure that it's basically not an environmental hazard or a safety hazard on the roads. There are all these things that have to be done for vehicles. Why not the guns? And why aren't parents held liable when kids take guns to school? If we're not going to have gun reform in this country, because clearly that's not an option, what are we going to do? We've got to do something. There are people who joke that the only reason they believe America has a public school system is because of the school shootings. That's a horrible joke, but it's also not completely wrong.
You know, I will never know what it's like to have an active shooter drill, but my children do. My youngest child, who is in middle school, told me that one of his fears is experiencing a school shooting. As his mom, I can't even explain the ache in my soul that I felt when he told me that. And I'd like to believe we live in a relatively safe area. But I also know that there has been an instance where a neighbor of mine had their handgun stolen from their unlocked vehicle. And these are the type of people who are allowed to own firearms. And these are the same people that throw the biggest tantrums around stricter gun laws. You know, guns really have one purpose, and that is to kill. So there's a lot of responsibility around gun ownership. And I always tell people, you don't shoot to wound, you shoot to kill.
The question is the intention behind it. Like I said, I am all for have a gun for hunting. Love it. Have at it. If you want to get up at 4 in the morning and sit in a tent covered in deer urine and to kill a deer, by all means, you have at it. That's not my thing, but that is your right. If you want to have a gun for self defense, we have a gun for self defense in our house. If someone breaks in, my dog is going to be useless as a guard dog because he's terrified of everything. We have that. I don't think anybody on the left is fully in favor of just removing all guns. But we always get back to this rhetoric of it's a slippery slope. What happens if we regulate? Something's got to give.
You're right. It is a slippery slope. It's called a slippery slope fallacy for a reason, and they love to engage in it, especially when the discussion around gun law reform is brought up. Their claim that any restrictions to the current laws around guns and gun ownership will immediately mean no more guns is absolutely false. It's akin to saying, if I make a bad grade on this test, then my GPA will drop and I will never get into a good college. And you just see it just continues. And yeah, it can seem logical. However, reality is so much more different, and we need to live in reality.
There is a big difference between a pistol and a hunting rifle are very different than something designed to wipe out mass numbers of people in a short amount of time. And the other thing that's pissing me off is every time this happens, we hear guns don't kill people, people kill people. Yeah, then why are we defunding mental health care? This brings us more into the next topic we're going to go a little bit deeper into, where everything has to become political and also the mental health issue in this country. We'll discuss more after the break. Want to listen to Bama Blue Dots on the go? Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and tune in every Thursday for new episodes.
Welcome back. As you may know, the loss of life did not stop at the tragic event at Brown University. Over the weekend, another devastating story came out of Los Angeles that shook a lot of people. not just because of what happened, but because of how the reaction quickly spiraled.
So we're obviously talking about the deaths of filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner. This whole story is just devastating. Anybody who loved going to the movies in the late early 80s to early 90s surely is familiar with his work. And then the work he continued on politically and with various nonprofits throughout his life. He and his wife were found dead, stabbed to death in their Brentwood home on December 14th. Their son, who has a documented history of mental health issues and drug abuse, has been arrested on suspicion of their murder. This whole thing is so tragic. And I think the last thing on the planet that the family needed was to see the president of the United States tweet this out or truth this out or whatever the hell he wants to call it. He said at 9:51 a.m. on December 15th, a very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away, together with his wife Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. By the way, that's all one sentence. He was known to have driven people crazy, all caps, by his raging obsession with President Donald J. Trump and his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. You might as well have just said, fuck you.
For me, I feel like this touches back to one of the things that Susie Wiles said in one of her multiple statements in the Vanity Fair article. The one where she admitted that Trump had a loose agreement that he could commit political retribution for the first 90 days in office, but he really hasn't stopped. This just feels like another notch on his belt. He is using his position as president to lash out at another person who spoke out against him, or he feels is like not on his side. He has to make it political, or his base would not feel like he's being persecuted.
Okay, I know a lot of people who have said, well, I don't like Trump's personality, but I like what he does for the economy or whatever bullshit. This is not presidential. And they'll also say, oh, well, after Charlie Kirk died, look what liberals said. Okay, some random dude on Twitter or X or whatever, or some random dude in a TikTok comment section is not the same as the president of the United States of America. There is a threshold and a bar that should be set higher. The bar is in the goddamn core of the earth right now, and he still seems to bring it lower. This disgusted me. This was very clearly not a politically motivated crime. There was never even suspicion of it being a politically motivated crime.
Absolutely. Even the police have not come out and stated anything about this being politically motivated. The narrative from the very beginning was always around their son, the son's mental health, and the son's drug addiction.
How big of a narcissist do you have to be to insert yourself into a family slaying?
An absolutely ginormous one. And for me, this has the same energy when he posted about Melissa Hortman's death, her assassination. While, yes, that was ultimately political, Trump, before it was even confirmed that it was politically motivated, he made it politically motivated. And just like every other tragedy that has happened and has been caused by some crazy right-wing nut job, Trump immediately tries to twist it and blame it on the left or leftist ideology.
Not a single elected official says, meh, get what you asked for. Nobody said that. Everybody said we condemn the violence.
Well, before this incident this past weekend and Rob losing his life, he was on Piers Morgan, Uncensored, where Piers point blank asked him his thoughts around the death of Charlie Kirk. And without missing a beat, Rob immediately talked about what a tragedy it was, how it shouldn't have happened, and that his heart goes out to Charlie's family. I think it speaks volumes to the type of person Rob Reiner really was. But I also want to add that I consumed a lot of social media when Charlie Kirk passed on a lot of different platforms. I never really once saw any elected official or anyone really outright celebrating Charlie Kirk's passing. Quoting Charlie Kirk and his thoughts on there is an acceptable and expected number of lives to be lost to keep Second Amendment rights is not a celebration of someone passing from gun violence. It's pointing out the irony that he became the very statistic he said was acceptable.
This is nothing but a horrible instance of, like I said earlier, people love to say guns don't kill people, people kill people. Clearly, we have a mental health issue in this country. We have a drug problem in this country. And it's not about blowing up ships coming from Venezuela that's going to solve the problem. It is by creating better support for people, making it easier for people to get mental health care. A lot of insurances don't even cover it. They don't think it's necessary. These are the things that would actually solve this. And like I said, going back to what we were talking about before, where guns don't kill people, people kill people. Okay, that argument, don't agree. But let's fix the freaking problem that is causing people to kill people then. Stop fighting against it and stop making everything about an us versus them politically motivated issue. Same thing with Brown University.
Yeah, I don't know why we don't treat mental health in a more serious fashion than what we do. It's like everybody is happy to stick their heads in the sand and just ignore it. And it's almost like they're too scared to do anything. It's just easier to sit there, stay on fire, and either pretend everything is okay or blame everything around them, everything but the actual problem.
And a lot of people they're like, oh, I saw a ton of people on the left. Blah, blah, blah. No. What you saw is some randos, you saw some fringe members, and all of our elected officials who we elect to represent us said nothing. Or if they did, it was, we condemn the violence. We've got to do something to fix this, blah, blah, blah. But every time there's a shooting like this, we say, we've got to fix something. This is not the time. We've got to let the families grieve, blah, blah, blah. When is the damn time?
Well, I think one thing people need to understand is that social media is not real. A very, very large amount of it is manufactured from influencers, their lifestyles, and even to the people posting messages, liking content, or even sharing content. We have known about foreign influence in our politics for some time now. And I really don't think people understand how normalized and pervasive it is. Honestly, I think we need to do a full episode on this in the next few weeks. We have midterms coming up, and people need to be aware how to spot the different types of misinformation that already surround them every day. But that being said, what pisses me off about Trump and his administration is that they know about the bots. They know about this misinformation and the influence it's having on both sides. They just don't care. They don't care if it hurts their base. They don't care if it hurts families that are grieving. As long as everyone stays angry and stays angry at each other, they're happy. They love this chaos.
And I've thought this for a while. There's a fundamental difference between conservatives and progressives. I'm not saying left and right. I'm not saying Democrat and Republican. I'm saying there's a spectrum of beliefs, but progressive versus conservative. What I see is that progressives alter their views to meet reality. Conservatives will try to alter reality to meet their views, which is why we have so many one offs. I see this all the time where they're talking about, I don't want, well, why did you vote for, Trump if he's doing X, Y, Z? He's doing all these awful things. Well, I don't want men and women's sports. Okay, we've discussed this. How many hundreds of thousands of college athletes are there? How many are trans? Less than 0.01%. Less than 0.1% of US citizens are trans. Like, this is not something we need to be focusing on. We need to focus on the bigger issues and stop nitpicking things that fit your agenda and actually make your agenda around the reality that exists. I don't be like, want to say both parties are the same, but yeah, I mean, there are people who are going to say inappropriate things no matter where you are in the political spectrum. Even people who are apolitical will say inappropriate things. But at the end of the day, the people we elect to represent us, that's who we should be looking to as the representation of the party and the movement.
However, I want to take a moment and give my shocked Pikachu face to Marjorie Taylor Greene, being the adult in the room that once again did the right thing and spoke out about what Trump said. Now, that being said, I am under no delusion of who she really is. I just find it hysterical.
I don't know. She's got something up her sleeves. I mean, but here's the thing is she's not saying anything that's leftist. She's not saying anything that's progressive. She is just saying things that are pretty common fucking sense. She is saying, hey, the president shouldn't have said that. She is saying that was inappropriate. She didn't even say it was inappropriate to say what he said. She said it was inappropriate timing. But at this point, the bar is so damn low that if anyone just says something that's common sense, we're like, oh, like we're so excited.
Oh, absolutely. We see anyone on the right, MAGA, Republican, anybody on the right do something that an actual human being would do. It's like seeing a unicorn prancing down the street.
We're like, oh my God, are we having another Adam Kinzinger?
Right? With that being said, I know we both would like to end this segment by saying that our hearts go out to anyone who has lost a loved one during these tragic events. We're going to take a short break, but when we return, we're going to shift gears and focus on lighter topics as we head into the holidays.
Want more Bama Blue Dot content? Make sure to follow us on Blue Sky, TikTok, and YouTube at Bama Blue Dots, or visit us at BamaBlueDots.com. Welcome back, y'all. And as promised, we're going to try to lighten things up a little bit. With everything going on in the world, sometimes we've got to take some space and focus on the good. So in lieu of a game this week, we are going to talk about the holidays, what we love about this time of year, and what makes us really cringe. So, Michelle, what is your favorite part of Christmas or the holidays in general?
The holidays for me start when that first whiff of pumpkin spice hits the air. And you can wear leggings and knee-high socks, and
When the pumpkin spice comes out, it's still 104 degrees heat index. Who the fuck are you kidding, ma'am?
well, in my mind, I am in leggings, warm, comfy socks, and knee-high boots.
Getting your North Face jacket out?
I mean, exactly. I have on my fall white girl attire, my fall white girl uniform. Kind of like the Visco girls.
You're what?
The Visco girls from like 2019. The girls that always wore like the big oversized t-shirts, had the puka shell necklaces, had their hydro flasks, and
Oh,
yeah, they all had a very specific look. They all looked the same, the white girl uniform. Um, but speaking of them, my favorite part was seeing them online posting stuff like, and I oop, and
that's the sound I make when I see an animal I'm not supposed to pet. I am that person who will die. My last words will be, here, kitty, 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 kitty. If I die in an unnatural way, it's because I'm going to try to pet something or cuddle something that I should not cuddle.
So, what I'm hearing is that I should not tell you about the troop of raccoons that live up by the dumpster.
What?
Yeah, I will let my husband regale you with the entirety of that story. But essentially, when he takes the garbage out at night, there are times where he walks around the corner and there's like 50 pairs of reflective eyes just staring back at him from our dumpster.
I was the kid who I loved Disney princesses, specifically Cinderella and Snow White, not because of the prince, but because of their little animal friends. My husband has to regularly tell me, "No, Catherine, we cannot adopt this animal. No, we cannot bring it." I would have 5,000 animals if I could, and specifically wild animals that I should not pet. But like I said, my last words, if I die young, my last words will be, "Here, kitty, kitty." So anyway, that's way off topic. So the holidays, you love pumpkin spice and
And this is my time of year. It's from that first whiff of pumpkin spice through at least the first 2 weeks of the new year. I love the decorations, the music, the smells, and just the general excitement.
I have a retail background. So I have a weird love-hate relationship with the holidays now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked retail before, so
Because all I want for Christmas is you, give you PTSD a little bit.
yeah, I think I'm the opposite. I love that song because it heralds in the holidays. But I kind of like all Christmas music.
What's your favorite Christmas song?
I only can pick one. Okay, Jingle Bell Rock.
Really? Mine is Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays by NSYNC. You gotta admit, that's a bop. I also love Christmas Tree Farm by Taylor Swift because preach. Um, do you want me to get really sappy right now? So I fell in love with my husband over Christmas. We met actually our like third date was election night 2016. That Christmas season we went to Bellingrath. He lived in Mobile at the time. I was living in Gulf Shores. And we had just started dating. I had been through an awful relationship, so my guard was obviously up. But just seeing his like joy about the holidays and he he loves Christmas. He's basically Clark Griswold Jr. The guy who would have like he will burn down the entire electrical grid to have the house lit up if he could. But just seeing how much joy he had at Christmas, and again, at the time I was working retail, so I was such a Grinch. I was like, I hate the holidays. I want to get this over with. I just want to be back to normal because working retail during the holidays is horrendous, for lack of a better word. But he's actually the one who made me love Christmas again that first year because just seeing his joy with it. We went to Bellingrath, and that was the first night that he really opened up to me. And we talked about things that were more than just like your first couple of dates kind of conversation. And he mentioned that his late mother loved baking tea cakes. I mentioned that to my mom, and he came to my parents' house Christmas Eve, and my mom found a recipe for tea cakes to make with him. And that has become a tradition. And I remember just sitting there thinking, I was like, holy shit, he loves the holidays and just seeing him bond with my mother. And he actually made Christmas special again because, like I said, I had been in retail for so many years. I saw Christmas something just to get through. And it was the first time I actually sat there and really enjoyed the holiday. And I think that was when, I kind of people say, when did you know? Like that was kind of when I knew.
Really, though, this is why I love this time of year. Just sometimes it really does have the ability to be a conduit for people to connect.
What are your like what other parts of Christmas make you cringe?
I would say tacky sweater parties. Honestly, I have an issue with how they're done. Everyone just goes out and buys one. There's no more creativity. Um, and the ones they get, they're always like super cheap. They fall apart. They're like 100% polyester and they are so itchy.
See, my beef with those is always so I'm one of those people who runs hot. I cannot stand it because every time I get invited to a tacky sweater, ugly sweater party. Now, keep in mind, these things are not the greatest quality in the world. I'm not going to spend more than 20 bucks on one. Let's be real. Like, we're going to wear it once, but it's always like 80 degrees when I have to wear one. Note to everyone here listening: if you're having a party, set your temperature 5 degrees below optimal before people get there.
We should bring back making our own ugly sweaters, even if it's just some fabric glue, pom poms, and fairy light.
Ooh, we could do that with, like, sweatshirts with, like, the markers and stuff like that, like markers and puff paint.
Yeah, exactly. Bring whatever you want to decorate. Doesn't matter if it's a t shirt, sweater, sweatshirt, whatever. And it's just about everybody sitting around, spending some time together, putting together whatever they want. We can call it our ugly Christmas apparel party.
Like I said, this time of year, despite the frustration, it's still wonderful and it's still beautiful because I feel like it's the end of year wrap up too. 2025 has been a pretty shit year, if you will. I'm exhausted personally, but I think this is a really great time to refresh and say, we're going into 2026. We're going into the midterms. We've got a lot of momentum going right now. So let's all kind of take this next 2 weeks. Let's enjoy Christmas with our families. Let's take this time to kind of reevaluate what's important, tune out some of the bullshit going on, be present, and then we can start the next year like a bunch of feral hyenas. But let's go into the new year with new momentum. I know for this podcast, we are going to take the next 2 weeks off. As I'm sure all of y'all know, we are still really building this thing. We're getting our social media together. We are getting everything built so we can really hit 2026 hard. We're going to be doing this weekly. We have guests lined up, but let's all take this as an incentive to say, look, we're blue dots right now. We're all going to be connected and we're going to build those connections and we're going to make 2026 into something amazing. Because if we don't, we're kind of screwed if they're the ones who get their way.
Definitely. And I think with everything going on, we all need to learn how to compartmentalize. We need to learn how to step away from the noise. So that way, you can stay engaged in this fight. Find a support system. I promise, no matter how much you feel like you are alone, you are not. You are not a single blue dot surrounded by red. There are more people out there than you know. And Kat's right. We are working hard to build out this community to connect these dots. So we appreciate every single one of you. And we love that you are here helping us build this community, helping us connect all these dots.
Cheers to a really solid 2026. Thank y'all so much for joining us, and we will see y'all after the new year.